What's up you guys, I'm Eric and welcome back to my channel, No You Grow Up. Today's video was supposed to be the last video in my Playmates series, but luckily the last Ronin Playmates figure started hitting, and shout out to a.k.a. Comics of Muncie. They hooked me up with not only the regular figure, but the Chase variant as well, so I was pretty stoked about that. Christy, Jeff, and Rob, you guys are all great people. Love going there. It's been my home base ever since I've lived in Muncie. So yeah, again, thank you guys very much for hooking me up with those figures. I was kind of going to be bummed if this was going to be my last video for the series, because as I was making it, it just has a much different tone than the rest of my videos in this series did. So for all the other videos in the series, I was just pretty much talking about all of my favorite memories with these figures and how much I love these figures, but this video is definitely a little bit more critical, and as I get into things you'll kind of understand why. So since the last Ronin figure dropped, I'm actually going to do what I'm going to consider to be a bonus episode for this series, and I'm going to review that figure. One more shout out before we get this video started. In case you didn't notice, I have a new logo and I am very happy with it. So shout out to Mark again over at Bite Size Geek. You guys should go check out his channel. He's an awesome dude. He's the person that made the subscribe and like pop-up for me, and then he offered to work on a logo for me too. So I was very happy about that, very happy with how it turned out. So again, Mark, thank you very much for making that for me. And with all that stuff out of the way, let's get rolling on this video.
Playmates was an absolute powerhouse in the 90s, and even though it had several properties under its belt that were selling well, I don't think anyone would disagree that Playmates was the house that the Turtles built. Playmates wasn't even a player in the action figure game until they put out the Turtles line, which pretty much took them from a nobody to arguably the biggest toy company of the early 90s. Even though Playmates has held on to the license ever since acquiring it in the 80s, they've never come anywhere near the heights they reached in the early 90s. The Turtles are an evergreen brand and seem to reinvent themselves every few years, whether it be in the form of a new ongoing series, a major motion picture, or back to their roots for another comic iteration. And most of the time, we're hit with one of these reboots. Playmates is right there with an accompanying toy line. But with no current media to back the kids line at retail, it kind of puts them in an awkward spot they don't really seem to be trying to do much about right now. And in my opinion, it couldn't be happening at a worse time. I'm sure they're well into working on figures for the new movies that'll be coming out in the next couple years, but we all know movie lines are usually pretty shallow. I understand that the corporate suit dummies only think that a property can work if there's a current ongoing series to back it, but we have several turtle lines going right now that would prove that's not true. The 80s and early 90s are without a doubt the golden age of kids' toys, but a lot of people, including myself, would agree that we're living in the golden age of adult collecting. We've seen an explosion in adult action figure lines over the last few years, and we're getting some of the best figures of all time. Companies like NECA and Super 7 have been able to give us some amazing figures that a company like Playmates just could have never given us. I'm very thankful that these companies have been able to sublicense the property from Playmates, and I couldn't be happier to have the figures that they've given us. But it still doesn't keep me from thinking about how Playmates isn't capitalizing themselves right now. Now, I would never expect Playmates to do anything like Super 7 and NECA are doing, but that doesn't mean they can't be doing more than what they currently are. Let's look at Mattel and what they've been doing with the Motu brand as an example. Motu currently has 3 separate lines at retail that Mattel is putting out themselves, and on top of that they have adult collector lines like Mondo is doing. They have both an adult collector line and a kids line based off 2 separate animated series that were practically running at the same time. On top of that, they kicked everything off before either of these 2 series have been shown with their Origins line, which in my opinion is by far the most fun line in the toy aisle right now. The Origins line is basically just updated versions of the original figures that Mattel put out in the 80s, but they have better articulation and they're made with much better materials, so they'll probably hold up a lot better than the figures from the 80s have. This line got a lot of people excited, including myself, and I can understand why this line absolutely slayed in the 80s. It's amazing. It's one of the only lines currently giving us the toy trifecta at retail with action figures, vehicles, and playsets, and they're all reasonably priced in my opinion. Parents are able to play with figures exactly like they did when they were kids, with their own kids now, and the experience hasn't been cheapened whatsoever for them or their kids. If anything, one might argue that this line is a better experience than the original line was. These figures are so good that a lot of adult collectors are actually replacing their vintage figures with the Origins line in their displays, and I don't know any other situation where that's happening right now. This line is without a doubt the blueprint that Playmates should have followed, and instead, they've just been phoning it in, giving us the bare minimum. All we've gotten is a bunch of re-release molds of both 80s and 90s figures, and while I have bought almost all of them because yes, I am a mark, they have been pretty disappointing with a few exceptions like the superhero set. While Mattel is improving on what they did in the past, Playmates has cut corners everywhere possible. The reissue figures are made with very cheap materials, they have very minimal deco, and in some cases like Mutant don't even come with their accessories, so they're just straight up selling us incomplete figures. They've also doubled, tripled, and quadrupled down on those bigger molds from the early 2010s that just keep getting reskinned and repacked over and over again with other random IPs. I will admit that the figures that came with the Stranger Things figs and the Street Fighter figs look better than the ones in the past. And I'm not shitting on anyone if you do like these molds, but they just don't do anything for me that I can't get better somewhere else. I don't want Playmates to try to do modern figures. I want Playmates to make modern figures of their classic designs. I want something that's unique in their own style, that 4.5-inch figure, and I know they can still kill that because of what I'm about to talk about next. I recently just got their last Ronin figure, and it's definitely been one of my most anticipated figures of the year. I was trying not to get my hopes too high, but everybody seemed to be very, very stoked on this figure, and once I finally got it in hand and got it open, I could immediately tell why everybody had so much good things to say about it. This figure is the best thing Playmates has probably done in the last 25 years. It's definitely not perfect, it has some flaws, but you can tell they put more effort into this one figure than they have in anything since the original Turtles line. Even if they never do anything worthwhile again, it won't take away from what they did in the past, and there will always be a ton of amazing OG figures to join my collection. I will always appreciate Playmates for giving us one of the deepest lines of all time, and one that still brings me just as much joy today as it did 30 years ago. Alright you guys, so that's going to wrap things up for this one. Again, I will have one more video in this series coming. I'm going to end things on a high note with my review of that last Ronin figure. Thank you for all the new subscribers. Welcome to my channel. I'm glad you guys are here. I hope you enjoy my content. Thank you to all my old subscribers. Thank you guys for sticking around. Thank you for chatting with me. And again, it's just very awesome that anybody cares to watch my stuff. One more thank you to a.k.a. Comics. I will put a link to their Facebook page down below. They do sales 4 or 5 nights a week online. They have great prices on books. You guys should really go check them out. They are awesome people. They have treated me excellent since the first day I walked into their shop, and again, I just could not be happier to do business with them. One more thank you to Mark. Again, man, thank you for making that logo for me. I could not be happier with it, and it just really made my day. I was so happy to put that on my channel this morning. So again, just one more time, thank you for that. And thank you guys for watching this video. Thank you for making it this far. And that's all I really got for you in this one. So take it easy, be safe, and I'll catch you guys later. Peace.